Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight, welcoming you to this week's Talking News. This week has been our busiest yet with our open day here at Millbrook House on Saturday. We welcomed over 125 people to Millbrook House over the course of the day, with 10 exhibitors on hand for people to meet with and talk to about their products and services. I've received feedback from so many members, both existing and new, and indeed all 10 exhibitors saying what a wonderful day it was. I want to say a huge thank you to the staff and volunteers who came on Saturday to make the event possible. And of course, the weather held out perfectly, which was a great backdrop to the barbecue cooked by our trustee Christina and to Morris, who performed a full range of songs to suit everyone's tastes. This week also saw our Mix and Mingle Thursday group off to the zoo, where Gary, the zookeeper, was on hand the whole time to allow everyone to handle the animals up close. We managed not to lose anyone at the zoo, although I would note that Chris did look quite at home in a couple of the enclosures. Our swimming is now back on at Medina Pool on a Monday, and this week we took our monthly group out to West Wight for swimming too. With Striders next week, it certainly is nice to see people out and active again. Enjoy the festival weekend if you're going, or the live music if you can hear it, and the sunshine while it lasts. Thank you, Lisa.
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. Freshwater Camp Road development slammed as completely inappropriate. Sandown Bay is a better area to bear the brunt of the island's housing need than the West Wight, according to a Freshwater councillor. Councillor John Medland's comments were prompted by the plan for 130 homes in Freshwater, which he blasted as completely inappropriate. Developer Tallulah Estates has submitted an application to the Isle of Wight Council for outline permission for the homes on Camp Road in Freshwater, including 46 affordable properties. Previous attempts have been made to develop the site, but plans from 2013 for 8 houses were turned down due to insufficient information in planning documents. The site of the new housing scheme is allocated for at least 90 homes in the draft island planning strategy. As only outline plans have been submitted, all detailed matters relating to the final scale, layout, appearance, access and landscaping will be determined through later applications. Freshwater South Councillor Mr Medland, however, has said it was a crazy idea and made no sense to build that large an amount of quite expensive housing in an area where there is need for more employment. He said, "It won't meet our local housing objectives and it will create an extra burden in a sense. A huge amount of extra housing when we have very low levels of social infrastructure when you think of the retail, health service and public services. We're out on a limb here. It's like building a city at Land's End." It's not just the Camp Road site, worrying Councillor Medland, but the other developments in the area, like the 44 properties at Birch Close, which will add pressure to the already stretched basic infrastructure. Councillor Medland said previous housing plans focused on the Medina, Ryde and the Bay area. He said, "It is very odd to see these quite huge applications eventually giving us more new allocated houses than the Sandown Bay area." The draft housing strategy pencils in 255 new dwellings in Freshwater, Totland and Colwell, compared to 243 in Shanklin, Sandown and Lake. Councillor Medland says the infrastructure in the Bay area, with railway and bus connections and the road network, means it is the place to build the extra housing. He said, "The Bay has got it all, everything is close to hand, whereas we are 12 miles away from everywhere." Caveats, however, have been given to the Bay area to include flood risk, topography and coastal issues. A public meeting took place last week with 150 attendees, which Councillor Medland was hugely pleased with the outcome of. Another meeting will take place this Friday, September the 17th at 7 p.m. in the Freshwater Parish Hall. MP Bob Seeley is said to be attending to speak to residents continuing his campaign against greenfield developments on the island. Comments on the planning application, reference 21/01552/out, can be submitted until September the 24th via the Council's planning portal.
This is Chris, reading an article from On the Wight. Hover Travel operating one craft service for the next 2 weeks. The Hover Travel timetable has been adjusted to become hourly during their off-peak operation. Hover Travel will be operating with one craft for at least the next 2 weeks. The cross-Solent operator says that unforeseen circumstances mean that they need to have repairs conducted on one of their craft, and whilst these repairs are being carried out with the utmost urgency, their timetable has been adjusted to become hourly during the off-peak operation. The company says, detailed evaluation of our future demand indicates that we do not have large numbers of future bookings for the off-peak periods, and if demand does increase, we have the ability to add in extra flights. The Isle of Wight Festival. With the up-and-coming Isle of Wight Festival this weekend, Hover Travel will retain their half-hourly service to ensure that both regular travellers and festival goers can travel with minimal disruption. They say they are also enhancing their COVID-19 measures, specifically for the festival period, with additional hand sanitising stations being created for the customers travelling during this time. Scott, Terry and Ryan, the Hover Travel duty managers, say, we appreciate that these changes will be disruptive for a small number of customers, and we have attempted to keep the adjustments to the minimum possible. Our staff in the call centre and in both terminals are available to help customers who need extra assistance in changing their flight times.
This is Michael reading from On the Wight. Cowes Enterprise College receives prestigious award for career programs and development. The school has been presented with the prestigious Quality in Careers Standards Award in recognition of wide range of career programs and support offered to students. Cowes Enterprise College, which is part of the Ormiston Academies Trust, OAT, has been awarded the prestigious Quality in Careers Standards Award for its dedication to providing students with valuable career engagement opportunities. The Career Mark Assessor praised the Academy for offering students a wide range of career programs and support. Career development embedded in curriculum. In particular, the assessor was impressed with how the importance of career development had been embedded into each year's group's curriculum. From year 7 to the last year of sixth form, each student felt supported and informed on how to follow their own path. Connecting students with local community. The assessor also recognised the Academy's determined efforts in connecting students with their local community and its economy. This includes educating students about different maritime and marine careers, as well helping them to develop skills such as sailing, swimming, life-saving and CPR techniques. Planning next steps. A core part of the Academy's career support is helping students plan their next steps. Staff are on hand to assist students in choosing their GCSE and A-level options and helping them understand which subjects are essential for certain careers. Everyone Matters programme. Furthermore, the assessor was also impressed with the college's Everyone Matters programme and how it's tied into the wider careers curriculum. Students are taught to value equally diversity and inclusion and to recognise the harm caused by stereotyping and discrimination. Every opportunity to pursue own interests The Academy was recognised for its commitment to ensuring students are offered every opportunity to pursue their own interests, such as the creation of an eco-school council. Through the council, the students have had the chance to lead on their own green initiatives, including urging others to avoid plastic usage. As part of this, students were supported in writing to MPs to ask them to provide more sustainable catering packages. Connections with local businesses. In addition to the support and information students receive inside the classroom, the Academy also places importance on forming connections with the local businesses. Students are often taken on school trips to see how various businesses work firsthand, as well as inviting exciting speakers such as marine biologists to come and talk to the whole Academy about their career paths. The Academy has also held fun career events such as hosting the Noel Turner Science Festival, aimed at inspiring young people into entering a career in STEM, STEM. Hard work and dedication of our staff recognised. Rachel Kitley, principal of Cowes Enterprise College, said, "I am extremely pleased to see that the hard work and the dedication of our staff in their mission to provide our students with the best opportunities has been recognised. Our robust programmes and career support offer our students every chance to pursue a wide breadth of different and rewarding career paths. We will remain committed to encouraging our students to reach their full potential by providing unique and invaluable experiences that inspire them to become independent and to succeed."
This is Patrina reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Ladies' Realm to close shops permanently in Ryde and Sandown. Isle of Wight High Street shop Ladies' Realm has announced it will be closing its stores in Ryde and Sandown. The shops have been a fixture in the towns for more than 60 years, with some staff members having worked there for more than 30 years. But now the company said the time has come to shut for good. Ladies' Realm Ryde will close on October 30th. Ladies' Realm Sandown will close on November 6th. In a statement, the company said, "It is with much regret that we must inform you of the permanent closure of our Ladies' Realm stores in Ryde and Sandown by the end of the year. We would like to thank our loyal customers for supporting our shops over the last 60 years, through good times and hard. Our thanks and appreciation must also be voiced for the members of staff who have worked in our 6 shops, many of whom stayed over 20 years, and a few over 30 years. Ryde Business Association said, "We've had so many new businesses open over the last 18 months. It was inevitable that we'd be saying goodbye to one sooner or later. Sadly, Ladies' Realm will be closing its doors for the last time on October the 30th. Thanks to all the Ladies' Realm team for their dedication to retail over the decades. We wish them all the very best for the future. Be sure to pop in to make your final purchases with them. Gift vouchers and outstanding credit notes must be used to purchase goods before closing on October the 30th. Rewards and loyalty cards will continue to collect points until 5 p.m. on Saturday, September 18th. Loyalty points can also be used in payment until 4 p.m. on Saturday, October 30th.
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Cabinet member rubbishes 6-year estimate for new floating bridge and claims 3 years is achievable. If a new floating bridge is to replace the troubled floating bridge number 6, then it could be in the water within 3 years of commissioning. This is the estimate of Councillor Phil Jordan, the Isle of Wight Council's Cabinet Member for Infrastructure and Transport, running contrary to the officer's estimate of 4 to 6 years. Councillor Jordan has however emphasised that no decision has been made on the future of the troubled ferry, which is currently out of service after its latest motor drive problems. The Transport Lead has also confirmed legal mediation has not yet started with the builders and designers of the vessel. Councillor Jordan last week told a Cabinet meeting he had asked for it to be completed by the end of November. Before the meeting, Councillor Jordan said a new vessel would take only 3 years from start to finish to put into place, and branded the 4 to 6 year estimate previously reported as wide off the mark. A report due to go before Cabinet in October will set out the next steps of FB6, which has been plagued with problems since it went into the water in 2017. The report will seek approval from the Cabinet to carry out essential redesign and reconfiguration work, but also says it would take 4 to 6 years to get a new vessel if that is the direction councillors decide to go in. An Isle of Wight Council spokesman said the previous vessel, Floating Bridge 5, took around 3 years to install, and the time frame given for a new vessel was based on outlined timescales for public procurement and the delivery of a unique multi-million piece of island infrastructure. They did say, however, some of the individual elements could be shortened or done in parallel to reduce the overall time frame. The Council is also in the process of commissioning a technical report which would assist the authority with the mediation process to understand and explain the substantial losses the Council has faced over the course of FB6's lifetime. Councillor Jordan said, "Until we do the mediation and until we get the report in at the end of the year, no decision about the potential future of the bridge will be made by this administration. But when it is, we will be making a serious decision and delivering on our commitment of the floating bridge. Next May, the Floating Bridge 6 will undergo its statutory 5-year inspection by the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, when it will be out of the water for 4 weeks.
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. Next year's Walk the Wight date announced. Mountbatten has announced a date for Walk the Wight 2022. It is hoped the event will take place on Sunday the 8th of May and will return to its regular size. 3,000 people came together to take part in Sunday's walk, trekking across the island to raise money for Mountbatten. While numbers were lower than usual, given the current circumstances, it was considered a success. Mountbatten CEO Nigel Hartley said, 3,000 people taking part in a charity walk at a time which still feels so strange was amazing. It proved to be such a task to make the walk happen, and we knew this year would be different. The fundraising picture is still very uncertain, and in many ways it feels like we are starting again after the pandemic. I'm delighted we pulled it off, and now we hope to return to normal for next year. It was so good to see people come together again. We've really missed it, and we owe a huge thank you to everyone involved. We're absolutely determined to keep going, and we hope this is another step in the right direction for us. As ever, walkers started at Bembridge at 6 a.m, with many going the full distance to Allen Bay. Some set off from Carisbrooke for the second half, and others took on the 8-mile flat walk. Many more families and children also walked the final 4 miles of the main route in the schools walk. The amount raised in donations will be revealed later in the year.
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Isle of Wight processed dairy proves popular with co-op customers. Dairy, tomatoes and eggs are the most popular produce on the Isle of Wight, sold at regional cooperative stores across the south. The latest news is being shared by Southern Co-op ahead of British Food Fortnight, which kicks off on Saturday and runs to the 3rd of October. Now in its 20th year, the campaign encourages people to seek out British food and drink, which will, in turn, have an impact on sustainability and the action on climate. In Southern Co-op's convenience stores, the top selling product ranges are from Isle of Wight producers, are from Bridlesford Lodge Farm, the Tomato Stall and Brownrigg Poultry. Matt Elliott, Retail Buying and Services Manager at Southern Co-op, who looks after its local flavours range, said, "There were some highs and lows in 2020 for our local producers, but overall sales of our local flavours range remains strong thanks to the continued customer support. Through our dedicated local flavours range, we celebrate local food and drink from around 200 regional suppliers, including many on the Isle of Wight. Now is the perfect time to focus on the future. So let's use this year's British Food Fortnight to continue supporting these local businesses and also try some of the incredible tastes available." So far this year, more than 230,000 individual products from the Bridlesford Lodge Farm have been sold in Southern Co-op stores, including milk, cheese and other dairy products. Bridlesford Lodge Farm has an award-winning Guernsey herd, as well as an on-site dairy processing building. It produces milk, cream, butter and cheese from their own cows under the Bridlesford brand, and fresh milk, cream and butter from other farms under the Isle of Wight brand. Paul Griffin, the fourth generation of the Griffin family to run the farm, explains there is a whole range of benefits when you buy and support local, including reduced food miles and lower carbon footprint, enjoying the local countryside and preserving its natural beauty, freshness and provenance, and safeguarding local jobs and supporting the rural economy. Paul said, "Quality is of the utmost importance, whether local or otherwise. Our dairy products from Bridlesford are all made right here on the farm, using the rich and creamy golden milk from our beloved pedigree Guernsey cows. The flavour is unbeatable." Southern Co-op is a great partner in the promotion of local food, when it is not always easy for small local producers to do this. With 200 cooperative food stores across the south of England, the independent cooperative's local flavours range is available at most of its convenience stores.
This is Michael reading from On the Wight. NFU call for government commitment to Britain's self-sufficiency in food production. The report asks for the government to complete a comprehensive report on UK food security later this year, covering the country's production of key foods and its contribution to global food security. The NFU is calling for a commitment from government that Britain's food production will not slip below its current level of 60% self-sufficiency, alongside greater ambition in prompting British food at home and abroad to aid food security. The call comes on Back British Farming Day, as the NFU releases a new report, embedded below for your convenience, which asks for the government to complete a comprehensive report on UK food security later this year, covering the country's production of key foods and its contribution to global food security. Mandate to report every 3 years. This would be the first meaningful assessment of UK food security in more than a decade, and the first under the requirements of the Agricultural Act 6.1,17. That mandate reporting every 3 years. The report also showcases how the UK can reduce its reliance on food imports by harnessing the growth opportunities for different homegrown foods and increasing British sourcing in public procurement, coupled with ambitious food and trade strategies that will help farmers provide more quality, affordable and climate-friendly food to the people at home and abroad. Exwood would enable farmers to build British brands overseas. NFU South East Regional Board Chairman David Exwood, who farms in West Sussex, said, "Farmers and growers produce world-class food here in the maritime climate of the South East. Not only is it delicious and nutritious, but it meets some of the most demanding standards for environmental care, animal welfare, traceability and food safety. Few countries around the world can say that their food standards match those of British farmers. Yet over the past few years, the country's self-sufficiency has dropped from a high 78% in the mid-80s to its current level of just 60%. It would be a mistake for this productivity to drop still further, leaving the country reliant on the rest of the world to feed us. That's why we're asking government to undertake a comprehensive report into food security and take appropriate action to demonstrate its commitment to boost sustainable food production in Britain. This would not only help reduce the UK's reliance on imports, which often fall below our own high standards of production, but also enable farmers to build the British brand overseas through trade." Mr. Exwood of Itchingfield, near Horsham, added, "If government can back British farming, then farming's economic contribution can increase accordingly. Farming is poised to produce greater quantities of affordable, climate-friendly British food for UK shoppers and people around the world, while bolstering domestic and global food security."
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. Bridlesford Farm Guernsey cows awarded prestigious prizes. The cows at Bridlesford Farm have won more than 3 prestigious awards. They were given 3 first awards and 4 reserve places at the annual general meeting of the English Guernsey Cattle Society. The AGM took place last week at Garway in Herefordshire. The president, Mr. Mark Jones, paid a visit to the Hartbury herd on the first day, which was followed by an evening meal at Creates in Monmouth. The second day sees a visit to the Kelsmore herd and their ice cream making facilities in Garway, followed by the AGM in the local village hall. The Bridlesford prize-winning cows are from the herd's Daisy, Daffodil and Lily families, having produced the highest standard in quality milk in the last recording year. Partner at Bridlesford, Paul Griffin, said, "These awards are an acknowledgement of the dedication and care the Griffin family and staff on our farm give to our beloved cows. We rear them to the highest of welfare standards, and we are repaid when they perform so well. All Guernsey cow farmers strive to breed and produce fine cows, and we are proud to be among the best in the country. The milk from the Bridlesford Guernsey herd is pasteurised at the farm and processed as whole, semi-skimmed and skimmed."
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Sainsbury's, the latest supermarket to announce Boxing Day closure. Sainsbury's has become the latest of the island's supermarket giants to announce that its staff will be given the day off on Boxing Day. The supermarket chain has announced the move to keep its supermarket, convenience stores and petrol filling stations closed on the 26th of December as a way of saying thanks to its staff who have worked exceptionally hard this year. Isle of Wight Sainsbury's staff joined those working for Waitrose, Morrison's and Marks & Spencer, who have also decided to keep stores closed. Simon Roberts, Chief Executive of Sainsbury's, said, "Christmas is a really special time for so many, but because of lockdown restrictions last year, lots of us weren't able to celebrate in the way we wanted. In recognition of this, and to say a massive thank you to all our colleagues for everything they have done during the last challenging year, we will be closing all our supermarkets, convenience stores and petrol stations, as well as Argos and Habitat stores this Boxing Day. I want to thank our customers in advance for their understanding, which will mean as many of our team as possible can have a well-deserved break to spend time with loved ones."
This is Michael reading an article from On the Wight. Silver and Bronze Awards for Isle of Wight Council for work during COVID-19. The Isle of Wight Council were awarded twice in the recent IESE, Institute of Excellence in Public Services, Transformation Awards for its work during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Isle of Wight has been recognised as a national leader in transformation and partnership with two IESE, Institute of Excellence in Public Services, Transformation Awards for its work during the COVID-19 pandemic. Silver for Community Response Service. The Island response to coronavirus was awarded a Silver Award in the Community Focus category for the Community Response Service that was set up rapidly at the beginning of the crisis to support islanders. The team of council staff, partners and incredible volunteers worked out of 27 local hubs to deliver food parcels and medicines to islanders who were shielding, providing valuable support to those who were self-isolating, such as dog walking, and offer a COVID helpline for anyone needing support, a friendly voice or someone to talk to. Bronze Award for Communications. Meanwhile, the role played not only by the Council but by countless partners and individuals in supporting the government trial of the COVID-19 app V1 in May-June 2020 was recognised with a Bronze Award for Communications. Working with the government departments and led on the ground by the Council's Communications and Engagement team, the rollout of the first phase of the COVID-19 test and trace app sought to maximise local engagement. More than 50% of the island's adult community downloaded the app, offering valuable feedback to the developers for further updates and national rollout. Where the Isle of Wight led, Britain did indeed follow. Percy Wilcox, a springboard from which we can learn and grow. Councillor Leader, Councillor Laura P.C. Wilcox, said, "Both awards are absolute testament to the innovation and creativity of our staff and the strength and benefits of working closely in partnership with our communities, the mainstay of the island's existence. This is very much a key focus of the way in which the Alliance administration intends to work, both now and throughout the lifetime of this Council. My absolute sincere thanks to each and every individual across our island made that possible. I'm hoping that this will be a springboard from which we can learn for the future and grow. Well done, everyone. Very much deserved." This year, IESE celebrated 12 years of the Public Sector Transformation Awards and received hundreds of nominations from local authorities across the UK.
This is Patrina reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Totland Recreation Ground subject to vandalism and antisocial behaviour. Totland Recreation Ground has been subject to vandalism and antisocial behaviour. According to the parish office, a number of locals have been spoken to concerning the vandalism in the area, including the plague area. Isle of Wight Radio understands young islanders aged between 13 and 15 are causing problems by setting fires in the tunnel, smashing glass around the slide and swing areas, and pouring fizzy drinks down the slide. If you have any information on these youth, please email the clerk at totlandparishcouncil.org.uk. Hampshire Constabulary have been informed. A spokesperson said, "We received a report on 8th September of issues regarding vandalism and antisocial behaviour at Totland Recreation Ground over the summer holidays. It's reported that youths have been setting fires and leaving broken glass in the children's play area. We encourage people to continue to report any issues relating to antisocial behaviour in this area to police, so the local neighbourhood policing team can build a bigger picture of the full extent of the issues and take any necessary action."
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. Isle of Wight NHS Trust only has 10-day blood bottle supply due to national shortage. The Isle of Wight NHS Trust has only got a 10-day supply of blood bottles due to the national shortage. The Trust says, however, it is being well managed, having achieved better usage of the stock it currently has, although fewer than expected bottles are being delivered. Suppliers of the blood bottles to the NHS, Becton Dickinson, had alerted the health services to a shortage of its tubes last month, which ultimately resulted in the temporary stopping of all non-urgent tests. The shortage has been blamed on supply chain issues caused by the testing of COVID patients and the continuation of routine tests, leading to increased demand. In a letter to all health services affected, NHS England and NHS Improvement said it is anticipated the position will improve from mid-September, but the overall supply is likely to remain challenging for a significant period. Alternative products are being sought, but it would take time to import the products and deliver them in the volume that is required. The letter said it was important and urgent that demand is reduced as much as possible, including the halting of blood testing in primary care and the community until September the 17th, except for clinically urgent testing. Acute and mental health trusts were also told they must reduce their demand by a minimum of 25% in the 3-week period up to September the 17th. Steve Parker, the medical director of the Isle of Wight NHS Trust, said they'd been asked to do add-on tests from previously stored samples rather than taking further specimens. Speaking at the Trust's board meeting, Dr. Parker said, "Over the last couple of weeks, this has been an ongoing issue. We've been able to demonstrate a 10% reduction in the number of bottles and tests undertaken. We've achieved a better usage of the bottles we had by circulating stock to make sure it does not go out of date." Despite the issues with delivery, Dr. Parker said they seem to have a good grip on the situation and are able to manage.
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Drink driver who crashed into ditch near Porchfield home banned. A man who failed to negotiate a bend and crashed his car into a ditch just 500 metres from his home has been handed an 18-month driving ban. 58-year-old Stephen Thomas, a self-employed removal man of White House Road near Porchfield, pleaded guilty to drink driving when he appeared before magistrates on Tuesday. The court heard from the Crown Prosecution Service that Thomas had been sighted getting out of his crashed car at around 21:45 on the night of the 29th of August. A member of the public alerted police to the incident. fearing that the driver had been drinking. Police responded to the scene and found the driver, now known to be Stephen Thomas, around 100 metres further up the road. Defending, Thomas's solicitor said that he had driven to his mother's house that evening as she had failed to answer his phone calls. He arrived at her home to find her collapsed in the bathroom. An ambulance was called and his mother was taken to hospital. Due to the upsetting situation, Thomas is said to have consumed alcohol before driving home, something described as a bad decision. Magistrates handed out an 18-month driving disqualification and fined Thomas £207, ordering him to pay also £85 costs with a £34 surcharge.
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Unusual scams targeting Isle of Wight, including someone who lost their cat. Trading Standards says some unusual scams are targeting islanders, including preying on someone who had lost their pet cat. An Isle of Wight resident who lost his cat and reported it on lost pet websites got a call from a man who told him the cat had been found and checked over by a vet. The scammer then asked for payment before he could collect the animal. It turned out to be a scam. Islanders are also being warned about a new vising scam that comes from Amazon or PayPal, saying a large amount of money has been taken from your account. The email appears to use official fonts and logos. There is also a message that reads, "If you didn't make this purchase, please call us." Anyone tricked into dialing the contact details will then be put through to a real person on the other end of the phone. The person will be a scammer who will try to steal as much information as possible. Some scams have been targeting island businesses, such as people pretending to be from the High Court enforcement and claims there is a CCJ against your company. There have also been calls from companies that want you to advertise in their brochure. They quite often claim to be providing a service, such as working to prevent crime and make the island a safer place. These brochures very often don't exist, and your advert will go nowhere.
This is Patrina reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Majority of West Wight Village not in favour of Isle of Wight road races. 69% of those surveyed in Bryston do not want the Isle of Wight road races to go ahead next year. As previously reported by Isle of Wight Radio, the event could see motorcycles travelling at more than 100 miles per hour through Chale, Shorwell and Bryston, using a long stretch of the military road. A 6-week consultation is underway for islanders to hear more about what the 12.4-mile course will entail, if approval for next spring, but permission for the time trial races has not yet been granted. The permits from the Isle of Wight Council as Highways Authority and the Auto Cycle Union, ACU, have not been applied for yet, as previously reported. The motorcycle event replaces the Diamond Races, which was planned for the same time next year, but has now been suspended. None of the organisers responded to the Isle of Wight Radio's request for a reason as to why the event was cancelled. Isle of Wight Radio understands it is because only one motorcycle race can take place on the island in 1 year. Parish councillors also complained about a lack of consultation about the diamond races, also highlighted concerns about speeding and the potential copycat effect the races could have on other boy races. Recently, 1,070 Bryston residents responded to a survey and 31% defended the event, saying they wanted it to go ahead. Parish Councillor Nick Stewart said he welcomes the decisive result of 31% in favour and 69% not. he said. Having campaigned in the recent election against the races, I was keen that the parish council held an early survey, overseen by the neutral parish clerk. Accordingly, I welcomed the decisive result, while recognising the number of people happy to see racing. Speaking to senior political figures on the Isle of Man, receiving comments from the Isle of Man residents, and talking to local islanders, it is clear that high-speed racing on island roads would have enormous downsides. Issues include race safety, year-round dangerous amateurs, environmental damage, doubtful economics and incompetent organisation demonstrate how the fundamental rural character of West Wight could be destroyed. As a Liberal Democrat, my first fury was over the lack of consultation by the race organisers or the previous Conservative Council. Their PR and done deal approach and collective failure to provide accurate information or follow basic legal guidelines was simply arrogance. We have heard the voice of the Bryston public against this racing in West Wight, recognising that many people would like sporting events and support for the rural West Wight. I will continue to resist any racing plans and urge other affected. Local councillor Steve Hastings told Isle of Wight Radio, "As a resident who lives within earshot of the military road, with all the screaming noise of racing motorbikes at weekends especially, I have long held a personal opinion of opposition to any road races coming our way. However, I have to date kept that to myself, as I felt I should support the residents in my ward, and I do represent all residents. That said, I have been pushing for a survey to be held in order that I am not speaking as my voice, but as the majority of local voices, and as you rightly point out, that has now taken place. Therefore, given the result of our Bryston Parish Council survey to all homes in our area, there is a clear view that residents do not support this kind of event, and therefore I do not support it either. There is also my main concern that I have voiced all along about the health and safety aspect of such events. It is well known that the Isle of Man has a terrible record on safety, and I do not want to see such statistics come to the island. I am concerned about copycat speeding of motorbikes on the military road, and indeed we had a very bad accident recently between a motorcycle and a car at Compton. I am bringing a motion to Council this week to persuade the current Cabinet to go ahead with purchasing average speed cameras for such roads on the island, for which we did put a line in the budget of 300,000. I would like to think they will support road safety and vote positively for this motion. Some opposition groups have said that the previous Conservative administration and the Council should have taken action or consulted. I should point out that the Isle of Wight Council to date has not received a full and prepared proposal, and until the organisers bring one forward, there is nothing to consult on. Parish councils and the Isle of Wight Council will carry out their own consultations and inquiries. Bryston Parish Council will be hosting a meeting tomorrow, Tuesday, with the race organisers to ask questions forwarded by local residents.
Good morning, this is Paul reading the County Press.
And Pauline.
Before we start the second part of the County Press, here is this week's Society News. The new swimming group at Medina is on every Monday at 1:30 p.m. Transport is available and the cost is £5 and £2.50 for transport. New members always welcome. Coffee and Chat is on every Wednesday at Millbrook House from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. and there's only £1 to include the cake and coffee. Come along and spend time with members and staff discussing various topics, etc. The Thursday Mix and Mingle is held every week starting at 10:30 and finishing at 2 p.m. If you would like to come along, please call the office to book a space. Transport can be arranged if required. This week the group are having a Chelsea Flower Show themed day, and members are encouraged to wear flowery clothes.
The Mix and Mingle group enjoyed a lovely day at the Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary in Sandown this week. The sun shone and everyone had a wonderful time together. On Friday, 24th of September, our monthly striders are meeting once again. To book a space, please call the office. Walk details will be available for Monday, and regular members will be emailed the details early part of the week. The planned trip to the theatre in November to watch Don't Panic has unfortunately been cancelled. Another trip will be planned in the near future and details will follow. For more details, please do not hesitate to call the office, or to book your space, please call Susan on 522205.
We're now going to start with letters, and we got letter of the week. This is from Dr. Jane Bowskill at Binstead. The situation regarding GP appointments is indeed impossible. Telephone or Zoom appointments are of limited use and take extra time if someone needs to be seen anyway. However, this COVID containment advice, instructions, rules has not been decided by GPs, who are in an impossible position trying to protect patients, their staff and themselves, and with COVID on the rise again. So I'm grateful that I'm no longer at the coalface. I did 38 years in NHS before retiring as a GP.
And from Liam Topping of Ryde, there seems to be a complete insane dichotomy between our hospital and NHS, who are pleading for people to wear masks and socially distance in enclosed spaces to reduce COVID cases and ease pressure on health services, and our island tourism and hospitality industry who appear happy to throw caution to the wind in a let's party bid to make money, regardless of the obvious COVID infection issues they are generating. But then again, they do say stupid is forever.
This is a letter from Jeremy Fox, Sandown. Tory MPs shouldn't worry about broken tax pledges. A properly state-funded social care system for everyone is surely a fundamental right in any civilised society, with the fairest way of meeting the cost being through taxes. Everyone benefits regardless of wealth. It also allows the elderly to pass on their inheritances to family and the younger generation, rather than seeing their homes sold with monies going to private care home owners, who pay their care staff a pittance, and see residents largely as cash cows to finance their flash cars and opulent lifestyles. I say to worried Conservative MPs who fear they might become electoral because of broken promises on tax, put aside your self-interest and do the right thing for a change. Who knows, you might be surprised and earn the respect of the majority of decent people you are there to represent, and will actually stand far more chance of being re-elected. I guess the question on many people's minds, particularly after our pandemic, is how can we afford to pay higher taxes for social care? If you look at those countries who pay the highest taxes, it's around 50% of income. For those countries who pay the least, it's around 20%. The UK falls somewhere in the middle at 32%. An extra 2% for a properly funded care system seems an absolute bargain and a very small price to pay.
From Ian Mackay of Tottenham Bay, switch utilities. Power and gas consumers should brace themselves for another steep hike in the price cap when the regulator fixes prices in October. In the last 12 months, the wholesale price for power and gas have more than trebled. There are a number of reasons for these dramatic price increases. The phase out of coal from the power sector, the closure of 70% of the UK's gas storage capacity used to shield against cold snaps and supply interruptions, the early retirement of the nuclear plants and no new build beyond Hinkley Point, and the inefficiencies in the carbon credit market required by gas power generators to offset their emissions. These factors mean that the rise in our domestic bills, hitting lower income households harder, will be a permanent rather than temporary adjustment. Islanders would be well advised to switch to lower and longer tariffs where they can.
Tunnel Tales made me think. This is from David McKinley in Knighton. Matthew Chatfield's article on tunnels, the County Press the 10th of September, brought to mind a romantic tale, prevalent when I was a boy in Newport. that there is a tunnel between the old King James Grammar School and the castle, possibly the pub. The story was given credence when, during renovation work at school in the 1950s, the possible entrance to a tunnel was discovered, but it was considered too dangerous to explore. If such a tunnel exists, the obvious question, what was it for? I discovered the possible answer to this question when I was asked to catalogue the island's Catholic church plate some years ago. It used to be said that the island harbours neither fox nor papist, but just as we know that there are plenty of foxes here, there is ample evidence that there was a thriving Catholic community here during the Regency. I hope that's right. There is a priest-run shaped manor in Catholic Church in Newport, built in 1791. It is the oldest post-Reformation Catholic public worshipping place in the country. It has a chalice which is not hallmarked, but is struck 3 times to the mark of its Jewish maker. Under the foot is the date 1740. Is it possible that Catholics, at a time when they were forbidden to worship, were innocently going to the pub and then secretly going to Mass at the old school?
A letter from Josephine Martin of Freshwater, Boxing Clever. Thank you for publishing my letter about Royal Mail reduced collection times, and that was in the County Press 13th of August. I must now offer an update. Since mid-August, 2 of the previous mornings-only postboxes have been reprieved, one being the wall-inset postbox at Yarmouth Post Office and the other being the pillar box outside Freshwater Memorial Hall. This is a very welcome restoration of an important service, which will be appreciated by the many of us who have previously used it.
This is Grizzly Windfall, or KP Wright at Nettleston. Does the government already have significant funds to help finance social care? We still await a public inquiry into hundreds of premature patient deaths that occurred over many years at Gosport War Memorial Hospital. Who benefited? Clearly not the patients nor their families. HM Treasury will have benefited by substantial savings in state pension payouts. More recently, with the COVID-19 pandemic, we witnessed a practice of discharging COVID patients into care homes in the full knowledge that many care staff were inadequately protected with PPE, preventing other residents from becoming infected. Thousands of our elderly as a consequence died. We were told the practice was to protect our NHS, but hidden in the Office for Budget of Responsibility budget report, it's been reported 1.5 billion will be recouped in state pensions from thousands of COVID deaths. Perhaps it will be a fitting memorial if this 1.5 billion grisly windfall were ploughed back into social care.
From Chris Innes of Knighton. The Perpetuous Tidal Energy Centre, PTEC, saga is back before planners with a development application at Flowersbrook. This is a project which promised full consultation with the public, jobs and industry for the island, renewable electricity and no surface-piercing objects. Reading the 307 documents and attending the consultation, there are no guarantees, and speaking with the promoters and developers, nothing is forthcoming. The PTEC proposal is looking to industrialise the south coast of the island with at best an array of tidal energy converters the size of A380 aeroplanes, about 1.5 miles off a heritage coast and marine park. All and everything will easily be visible. The current plan is for a 30 MW facility, although the ambition expressed by TEC's chairman and the council is 300 MW. What is proposed is an attempt to radically change the seascape and use of the sea. The project will increase noise from offshore and will be lit at night, a Trinity House requirement, so it will blight a dark sky area. This project is a watershed moment for the island and its natural environment, and most importantly the sea, which is one of the most stressed marine ecosystems in the world. Council and taxpayers have already invested some 3.8 million into this venture to receive a 5% interest. The balance is privately owned, the shares or equity given to a local businessman for a nominal amount, and his agreement to lend £1 million into the business. The transactions that saw public money transferred to private ownership are worthy of further scrutiny and review. Finally, the marine licences was granted 6 years ago and was recently reissued. For whatever reason, no reports relating to the marine environment were updated. This is surprising given the bars around the marine environment have been raised in recent years, and you would have thought both PTEC and the Marine Management Organisation would want them updated. There remain just too many unknowns around this project: the Council's own conduct, the backers and promoters of the project's viability, the quality and standard of a number of reports, and their source data to unequivocally ratify the Flowers Book application.
Right, this is a letter from Molly Attraw to Knighton. Let's be clear about TEC motives. While many people in principle may be in favour of tidal energy, we do need to know why the Isle of Wight Council relinquished almost all of its financial stake in this project, leaving a single opportunist businessman with majority, i.e. controlling holding. Was this simply inexperience and gullibility? We are being sold green ideology and that PTEC will create 1 or 2 local jobs. But in the process, the council has already been prepared to destroy one of its own most precious natural assets, the short stretch of unspoiled coastline between Ventnor and St Catherine's, for no return. One thing is for sure, the businessmen behind this project are not altruistic eco-warriors, so the island needs to consider its own best interests, which in this case is a protection of the unique characteristics of the undercliff coast. Any development needs to be appropriate to place, and the PTEC proposal clearly is not.
From Robert Drover, Freshwater. More cops needed to tackle dangerous driving. Yet another month of motoring mayhem on the island reported. However, there is far more evidence of either careless or reckless driving written on our roads. The number of tyre marks is outstanding, the likes of which I've never seen before. Their length in some cases is frightening, and some even veering across into the opposite lane and appearing at spots that any sensible driver would recognise as potentially hazardous, for example junctions, blind corners and hill crests. There are therefore many near misses or unreported incidents happening, with some marks from heavy vehicles. It is time, I suggest, for a review of speed limits across the island, with perhaps a 40 mph maximum. Above all, we need more traffic cops.
Ireland will pay. This is from Susan Day at Cowbourne. Mr Giddins has no doubt invested a large sum of money to stage the Isle of Wight Festival, but it will be the Isle of Wight residents and St Mary's who will pay the price.
Has the Isle of Wight become a charity case, says Brian Lee of Abingdon in Oxfordshire? So, what are councillors actually suggesting in the County Press 10th of September to solve the island's shortage of money? Because it appears to me that it is to have someone standing on the jetty shaking a collection tin as visitors roll onto the island. The real shortage of cash comes from the loss of the amount of money local authorities used to receive from government grants. It used to be called something like the Rate Support Grant, and it has fallen by 18% since 2010. I have no idea what that is worth in real terms to the Isle of Wight, but I bet someone who reads this does. At the same time as a Tory government slashed local authority income, they forced them to outsource or close down as many departments as possible in the hope that the whole concept of local government disappears, and they were assisted in this imposition of austerity by the light blue Tories, the Liberal Democrats. So get real, councillors, get involved in real politics and get rid of the Tory government.
Right, we now move on to White Memories. This is an article by John Hannon. Geoffrey loved living an islander's life. Over the past 50 years, several top actors have fallen in love with the island and have moved here or bought property. These have included Celia Imrie, Ian Bannon, Reginald Marsh, Julia Wadman, Jack Douglas, Michael Sheard, David Calder, Benedict Cumberbatch and Melvin Hayes. Another who proved so popular was Geoffrey Hughes. His television credits were unbelievable. In 4 hit series alone he made over 300 appearances. Who can forget Eddie Yates in Coronation Street, Onslow in Keeping Up Appearances, Twiggy from the Royal Family and Vernon Scripps from Heartbeat. Then there were movies like The Virgin Soldiers, The Bofors Gun, Yellow Submarine as the voice of Paul McCartney, and the daring television series Curry and Chips, which is never repeated today. Geoffrey had plenty to boast about, but never did. You had to pry stories out of him. He was certainly not an acting lovey and was never one of the showbiz set. He was proud of his work, and that's just what it was. He loved meeting genuine islanders and listening to their stories. In fact, after moving to the island, he turned down returning to Coronation Street and Heartbeat. They tried to tempt him with big money, but he always said, "I don't want to go back to the North Island." Geoffrey had a boat moored in a Cowes boatyard before he moved here permanently. I can remember writing him a letter, care of the yard, and sometimes later found a surprise message on my phone to say he was now living here and would be pleased to see me. We met quite a few times after that. During his remarkable acting career, he became one of the most famous faces in Britain. Originally, Geoffrey was given a one-play contract at the Stoke Repertory Theatre. When the assistant stage manager broke his arm, the young actor was asked to stay on. That quickly led to his West End debut. He also learned how to project his voice to reach all parts of the theatres. At the age of 17, he joined the cast of Lionel Barks' hit musical Maggie May. That led to him an early television appearance in Z-Cars, The Likely Lads and Dad's Army. Throughout his television and movie career, he loved to return to live stage acting. These included a London stage season in Run for Your Wife and tours of Australia. The success of Eddie Yates in Coronation Street in a way typecast Geoffrey, and this was not unexpected. He told me once it was said that I had turned slobbery into an art form. In keeping up appearances, Onslow was the most contented character. Give him a beer and a bacon sandwich and he was more than happy. Twiggy and the royal family found him a new generation of fans. The slobby English was still there, but the humour was aimed at a younger audience. The redecorating scene for Baby David's christening has been played so many times, I think they made it up as they went along. He did smarten up for his portrayal of Verdon Scripps in Heartbeat. For a while he worked for a solid 48 weeks a year, filming 26 episodes of the popular series. I can remember being so proud of Geoffrey and very nervous for him. When he was on the screen narrator for a live television production of the Liverpool Nativity performance in the streets of City, lined by thousands of people, he never put a foot wrong in several hours of transmission. He proved what a supreme professional he was.
In 2003, Geoffrey and his lovely wife Sue, another who was always far removed from the glitzy world of showbiz, bought 23 acres of woodland on the outskirts of Newport without even looking at it. With the guidance of experts, particularly Danny Horn, the plantation was regenerated to restore the woods. That led to a successful island business. Geoffrey was always keen to help local charities, and on 2 occasions he was the star guest at the Island Amateur Theatre Awards. Geoffrey met one of his own heroes, another islander of the time, when he saw the Shadows' original electric bass player Jet Harris in a Southampton hospital. They were both outside in wheelchairs after operations having a crafty smoke. That chance meeting led to a new friendship. Both admitted they would love to have reversed the roles. Geoffrey always fancied playing in the Shadows, and Jet would have loved to have been a top actor. Sadly, both are no longer with us. Geoffrey's funeral service in 2012 was such an inspirational occasion, and you could sense a genuine love for him. Local friends were sat alongside Heartbeat actors Tricia Penrose, Gina the barmaid, and Peter Benson, Bernard Scripps. Live music was provided by members of his favourite band, the Fairport Convention. Many islanders were bemused by his very close friendship with the former volatile local footballer, house builder and pony breeder, Brian Morey. It was quite simply that they both had one thing in common and had never forgotten. They were both council house boys and were very proud of it. Geoffrey's was in Liverpool and Brian's in Gunville. Geoffrey was never happier in the latter years of his life than speeding around his land and the lavender farm on his quad bike. Sterling Moss would have been proud of him. Geoffrey Hughes is sadly gone, but certainly not forgotten.
We now move to My View. This is an article by Malcolm Mine. Don't think about doom, try enjoying life instead. I've always loved sport, and last Saturday in New York there was a sports event which ranks right up there as one of the greatest of my lifetime. The Women's US Open tennis final. Obviously I wasn't in New York, but I, along with millions of others, watched on TV as the unseeded 18-year-old Brit Emma Raducanu took on Canadian Leila Ferdinand. It isn't often that I might find myself shouting at the television, but I'm sure I wasn't alone in screaming things like, "Come on, good girl, hold your nerve," etc. as Emma smashed her way to the title in straight sets. It wasn't just the achievement, but the way in which she went about it, with a smile on her face and a humbleness that you don't see very often these days. I have to admit that for the past few years I haven't been as interested in tennis as I was back in the 70s, 80s and 90s. But I can't wait to watch Emma Raducanu in action again. And Wimbledon next year is going to be electric. England has a new sporting hero. One of the things which added to the excitement of the tennis final was the large crowd that was drawing the two girls on. Events like that just aren't the same without a crowd. And this weekend we have our own very large crowd at the Isle of Wight Festival at Seaclose.
I'm really excited to once again have the opportunity to attend the festival and see it as another step towards the return of normality. My view isn't shared by Newport resident Selina Burnmans, who last week wrote to the County Press to state that the festival shouldn't go ahead because of the risk of COVID spreading. When are people ever going to stop going on about COVID? Yes, it's a killer, but we have vaccines now which reduce the chance of death just as cars have seatbelts. But despite cars having seatbelts, we still have an average of 1,800 deaths a year on UK roads. So, would Miss Bergmans prefer we don't drive cars at all, just to be on the safe side? Can we please just get on with living? And finally, Esther, and finally, Cyril, I once again am finishing with the latest update on the floating bridge. As I have mentioned before, sorting out the floating bridge fiasco is the one solid pledge that this new council administration has made. But things seem to be getting worse, not better. The chain ferry is yet again out of action and has been since the August bank holiday weekend. Apparently Floating Bridge 6 now needs a new drive motor. We've also been informed by those in power at County Hall that getting a new chain ferry could take up to 6 years, which is 2 years too long if this council are to fulfil that solitary election promise they made. I will continue to repeat the very simple solution to Council Leader Laura P.C. Wilcox until she finally sees sense and follows my advice. Just scrap it. A vehicular ferry across the Medina is no longer needed. Right then, see you in the mosh pit at Seaclose Park.
There's an article now by Jonathan Bacon. Biosphere designation can bring us so much. This is the first of a series of columns about the Isle of Wight UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. The aim is to help people understand what a biosphere is and how it will be a key part of protecting, sustaining and enhancing our precious local environment in the years to come. The Isle of Wight, together with its surrounding Solent and Channel coasts, was awarded this status in June 2019. Formally recognising we have globally significant resources of culture and biological diversity and a policy framework capable of sustaining them as part of a living, working community. The significance and value of the status is perhaps shown by the fact that across the planet there are only 714 biosphere reserves in the United, only 7 in the UK. UNESCO is the United Nations educational, scientific and cultural organisation, and it seeks to build peace through international cooperation. The designation directly connects the island to these principles and the wider objectives of the United Nations. The definition of the reserves is our sites of excellence to foster harmonious integration of people and nature for sustainable development through participation, knowledge, well-being, cultural values and society's ability to cope with change. While biosphere status does not itself provide extra powers or money, it is a mark of global excellence and provide a powerful way to strengthen and support existing legal and policy protections for our natural and cultural heritage. A key element to this is the development of the new Island Plan, which will recognise and promote the principles and aims of the biosphere in respect of future land use and development. In future articles, those who are doing the work to promote biosphere status and what it supports will set out how the biosphere will be helping and promoting a sustainable future which both benefits Isle of Wight people and protects our valuable environment. You will hear about the status can and will be used to support and develop key parts of our economy such as tourism, agriculture and innovation. We have been given a valuable tool to use. We must now make the most of it.
And now what's on this week? Let's have a look. The Wight Military and Heritage Museum, which is at Northwood Camp in Cowes, is pleased to announce an open day with free entry for all on Saturday, the 25th September, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And they're pleased to support the Britain-Norman Aircraft Preservation Society and the preview of their Islander aircraft.
We carry on with entertainments, or what's on. Too many uncertainties in the current climate means the Isle of Wight Literary Festival will be a digital once again this year. Maggie Ankers, who chairs the festival, announced the 2021 event will be a digital gathering accessible to islanders, mainlanders and literary lovers around the world. There are too many uncertainties, so the trustees have regrettably decided we won't be able to deliver the festival to the standard our speakers and festival goers expect. But we aren't going to let the dates go by. We will be streaming the digital festival between Friday, October the 8th to Sunday, October the 10th. The digital programme will include a range of topics regular festival goers enjoy, from politics to prison, history, a natural world and captivating fiction. Speakers will be announced within the next 2 weeks, say organisers, but some confirmed names on the festival website includes Alexander McCall-Smith, Andrew Lowney and Michael Cockerell. Last year the Isle of Wight Festival went digital for the first time, that's the literary festival, thanks to Steve Ansell, who is responsible for festival radio. Steve has more than 30 years experience in broadcasting and will produce this year's event. Speakers from last year's free digital festival included Jeremy Irons, reading Lewis Carroll's The Hunting of the Snark, Anna Pasternak talking about the controversial Wallis Simpson, the Duchess of Windsor, Hunter Davis sharing his memories of the Beatles, and festival vice patron Alan Titchmarsh, who opened the digital festival and read from his book of poetry.
And what do we have? The Arts Society, Isle of Wight, will soon be starting its 40th anniversary season of lectures and events. The Arts Society is a national organisation dedicated to the support and promotion of the decorative and fine arts. Expert speakers give illustrated lectures at monthly meetings and share their specialist knowledge about the arts in general. The Arts Society IW will launch its anniversary season on September the 28th. Having not been able to hold meetings in person since March last year, the Society can now offer a full programme of lectures and events at its new venue, Northwood House, Cowes. The first lecture on September the 28th will be given by Paul Chapman on Cirque Medrano, Renoir, Degas and Lautrec. The lecture looks at the legendary Paris circus from its beginnings in 1875 until its closure in 1963. It was integral to Paris life and culture, attracting writers, painters and poets. Many artists, including Renoir, Lautrec, Degas and Picasso, were inspired by and captured the magic of the circus. This is an intriguing journey of the Cirque Medrano's history, seen through the eyes of the Montmartre artists.
And finally, this is a show that's at the Apollo Theatre, Ladies in Lavender. It's Friday the 17th and Saturday the 25th of September, 7:30 p.m. To book, it's an Isle of Wight number 01983 210 010.
And now some more news from the county press. Festival boss reassures Isle of Wight over COVID fear. Safer than a supermarket and with stringent measures in place, Isle of Wight Festival boss John Giddens is confident the event will not be the COVID spreader some fear. John's wife Caroline has been at the forefront of providing COVID testing at all the major festivals this year, including Latitude, Reading and Leeds, and the Isle of Wight this weekend. John said it's safer to come to this gig than to go to Tesco's. People were saying there was a COVID spike after Boardmasters in Cornwall, but that was down to tourism. Cornwall was packed. To blame it on a local festival was outrageous. To enter the festival, people must prove they are not bringing COVID in with them by providing proof of double vaccination, a negative lateral flow test taken prior to travel on the day of arrival, or proof of natural immunity. John said, "We've got stringent measures in place. What else can we do?" There's a peace, love and understanding theme this year, with hippie and flower power clothes likely to be prominent. John said, "We've got festival weather, the forecast is great, the bands are coming, and it's going to be a joyous experience. Everyone's so vibed."
Well, I don't think I'll be going. Staycation boom harming rentals. A desperate state the Isle of Wight's rental market has been laid bare in figures from property website Rightmove, which found the supply of rental properties had dropped by 82% in 2 years. Rental properties in current staycation hotspots like the island have either been sold off by landlords cashing in while prices are high, or transferred to short-term market of lucrative holiday lets. The 10 places all recording the largest falls in rental supply are all popular staycation locations, but the island's top of the list, followed by North Devon. The county press has previously reported on the rental crisis on the Isle of Wight, when properties were being snapped up within the hour. Ben Hollis of Lancaster's estate agent told the Telegraph this week, "Normally across the whole of the Isle of Wight there will be 200 properties available. Today there are 18. There was a point a few weeks ago when there were 4. Now we leave a rental property online for an hour and would generate 30 inquiries." Currently on Rightmove at the time of writing, a handful of 4-bedroom homes are listed for upwards of £1,500 a month. A third of the properties listed are up for upwards of £1,000 a month. The cheapest 3-bedroom home is £895 per month. Rightmove also found that competition for homes on the island has increased by 376%. The housing market has been buoyant this year, with house prices rising, but properties being snapped up. The council said it would work to find solutions for any household that approaches them for assistance because they are homeless or threatened with homelessness. People in this situation could contact the council's homeless service for advice and assistance. Housing charity Shelter said that for decades nationally the number of social homes has been plummeting, forcing people to rent privately, and this will be worse post-pandemic.
The government's new investment in adult social care announced by the Prime Minister last week has been slammed as inadequate for the island. Councillor Carl Love, Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, said it would not go anywhere near fixing the island's problem, falling well below what was expected and may make the situation worse. In recent weeks, the island has continued to suffer a care crisis, with a lack of staff to fulfil roles, resulting in one provider advising those cared for it would no longer be able to provide the service. To try to help the national crisis, Prime Minister Boris Johnson outlined a shake-up of adult social care, including the way it was funded, which will also help pay for a post-COVID catch-up programme for the NHS. Social care is paid for through local authorities, but with a hike in national insurance, the government hopes to earn £5.4 billion over 3 years, specifically earmarked for social care in England, with £500 million for workforce training. While government pledges councils will have access to adequate funds to meet their demands, Councillor Love said while it was a step in the right direction, he was gobsmacked. Speaking at the council's cabinet meeting last week, Councillor Love said it would still leave the council in a position where the adult social care budget would need to be cut next year. Councillor Chris Jarman, Cabinet Member for Strategic Finance, Corporate Resources and Transformational Change, said the reforms would have a significant impact on the authority and create additional risks. He said there would be no new money for existing services and cost caps would have additional implications and burdens for the council. He said we will be in a position of assuming greater risks, greater costs, greater management with very minimal ability to offset that in any way. Councillor Jarman said looking at the demographic here, the island may be disproportionately impacted negatively by the reforms. £16 billion nationally has been penciled by the government to go to NHS England over 3 years. However, Councillor Love said the government failed to recognise how adult social care works in tandem with the National Health Service.
Festival favourites close for weekend. Usually a staple for last-minute purchases and a busy hub during the Isle of Wight Festival, this year Fairley service station will close throughout the weekend. The business had announced it is due to putting their staff first and protecting them from COVID. The car sales, workshop, petrol pumps and shop will be closed over the entire festival weekend, from 4 p.m. on Friday to 6:30 a.m. on Monday when it will reopen. The statement said we feel it is important to put our staff first and protect them as far as possible from COVID-19. Along the main road at Wootton, Terry's Fish and Chip Shop is doing the same thing, as it also said it is due to COVID concerns. The popular Chippy posted on Facebook, "We have decided to close the shop for the festival weekend commencing Thursday. We feel that due to the festival taking place and high COVID rates on the island, we want to protect our staff and customers. We also need to have some work done to enhance the shop. Please be patient with us and we apologise for any inconvenience caused. We will be back open on Monday. Some island businesses have closed so their staff can attend the festival."
And one final item on the festival. Kaiser Chiefs frontman Ricky Wilson visited the Wild Heart Sanctuary in Sandown on his way to the festival. He visited the lions and tigers to draw attention to the work of the Wild Heart Trust, which runs to attraction. Ricky met the rescued animals, fed the meerkats, got up close with the lemurs and served lunch to the lions. He's staying in Ventnor this week before attending a wedding, before headlining the Big Top on Saturday night at 11:45 p.m.
Red Arrows wow onlookers with a spectacular display. The Red Arrows made a spectacular appearance in the skies above Newport yesterday afternoon. The Royal Air Force aerobatic display team wowed the early arrivals for the Isle of Wight Festival, as well as Newport residents and shoppers. Sporting their trademark red, white and blue smoke trails, they performed their routine to appreciative spectators. From the air they would have had a bird's eye view of the traffic. Yesterday there were long delays as Fairley Road was closed northbound ahead of the festival, which takes place over this weekend, having been postponed from its usual June dates.
Disruption to bus services, not COVID. Southern Vectis has apologised and thanked passengers for their understanding after several cancellations this week. Routes 9 and 1 are among those worst affected by buses not running. 6 journeys to the Cowes Red Jet terminal were off on Monday lunchtime, while driver absence was blamed for a significant number of Ride to Newport buses being taken off the route. Both were affected again on Tuesday. Southern Vectis told the county press that it was not a recruitment issue and was not related to COVID-19. Richard Tilsley, Southern Vectis General Manager, said, "Whilst this time of year is a particularly busy time for us, my colleagues have been going above and beyond to keep our buses running. At present, we are also facing higher than usual driver absences. As with many businesses, our resources are currently stretched. Regrettably, we've had to cancel a small number of journeys, but these are isolated to our high-frequency routes, so that delays are kept to a minimum. We do expect the situation to improve over the next 2 weeks. We thank customers for their patience and understanding during these challenging times."
Survey respondents against race. A survey carried out by Brighstone's Parish Council has found that an overwhelming number of local residents are against the upcoming Isle of Wight Road races. The results came via a survey form of which 878 copies were issued. The proposed motorcycle event will take place in April next year through Chale, Shorewell, Bryston and a stretch to the Military Road. Organisers are planning for between 20,000 and 30,000 spectators per day. Last month, Brightstone Parish Council slammed the public engagement and consultation of efforts of the organisers of the event and said they would survey residents to find out how many were in favour. Isle of Wight Road Races is a mid-consultation and is seeking to hear the views and identify the specific needs and concerns of those that will be mainly affected. Brightstone Parish Council asked for the number of people in each household who were either in favour or against the race event. From the 499 surveys returned, the results showed the number of people in favour was 333, a number of people against was 737. Brightstone Parish Council will be holding its own meeting with the race organisers to ask questions forwarded by local residents.
Ofsted inspectors have endorsed the way the Isle of Wight Council continued to support children and young people during the COVID-19 pandemic. During a recent visit, inspectors found Children's Services had planned and delivered a well-coordinated and effective response throughout the crisis. They said the council had continued to prioritise and respond swiftly to concerns about children. Their actions have been swift and well considered, with an appropriate focus on supporting the most vulnerable. The virtual inspection focused on the local authority response and arrangements regarding children in need and children subject to child protection planning, including children with disabilities. The team also considered how Children's Services have continued to safeguard children and young people since the outbreak of COVID. A letter published by Ofsted on Tuesday, 7th of September, praised senior leaders for continuing at pace with their transformation project and said the Council's new social work model and approach have made a positive impact on social work practice. It also highlighted some areas for improvement, including the quality of assessments to ensure better consideration of parental histories and previous agency involvement. Welcoming the report, Councillor Debbie Andre, Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Education and Skills, said this was a routine but intensive check from Ofsted, which does not result in a graded judgment but comments on a specific area of work.
New consultation on future of school. The future of Chillerton and Rookley Primary School will be once again under the spotlight. At the next Isle of Wight Council Cabinet meeting in October, it will be decided whether or not to go out to consultation over the future of the small rural primary. Councillor Debbie Andre, the local authorities member for children's education, announced the decision last Thursday when members met at County Hall. She halted an earlier consultation decision when she took over the role in May. It meant the primary school was able to open this month for another school year. Councillor Andre said, "When I first came into this post, we did pause this decision as we wanted to take a measured approach. This is exactly what we have done. We will fully consider results of the consultation and then decide a way forward. We recognise we do need to make a decision, but it was only right and proper we made a fully informed decision." The primary school run by the Stenbury Federation was under threat earlier this year when it was revealed low to non-existent pupil intake numbers and funding problems have made the school untenable, according to head teacher Mark Snow. Campaign group Save Our School has been pushing for flexi school options. A spokesperson for the group thanked the new council for listening to concerns. If it gets a go-ahead, a 6-week consultation will begin and the findings will be brought back to the Cabinet in spring 2022.
Intrusive sewer works by Southern Water has forced one restaurant to temporarily close its doors. Apley Seafront Restaurant, Cadet Beach Club, has announced it can no longer operate in the proximity of the noisy, smelly works at the beach sinkhole. The staff posted on social media, "As you're probably aware, the restaurant has been seriously impacted by the works being completed by Southern Water, and we feel this is grossly affecting our ability to provide the customer experience that the beach club was set up to provide. We feel the lack of support, both financial and structural, from Southern Water. We've been unable to continue to provide what we feel the beach club should stand for. We will be closed until Southern Water takes some action to rectify this. The outrageous noise, smell and general disregard for us and our clientele has been phenomenal. Any large table deposits for immediate bookings can be returned if you message the page. We hope they won't take too long, but at present the current works are simply too intrusive to operate.
Nominate charities for County Press cash giveaway. The County Press, the voice of the island, has given local charities a chance to take a share of a whopping $125,000 cash giveaway. Our parent company's charitable arm, the Gannett Foundation, is providing £125,000 in cash to support local charities across the country, and we're delighted to have a £20,000 share to give away in the Hampshire, Isle of Wight and Dorset area. In previous years, the Gannett Foundation has supported other island good causes, including giving £5,000 to Haver Street Community Association for a new roof and £3,000 to Pan Together. This year we want you to decide where this money should be spent. We're asking readers to nominate a favourite local charities to be considered for a grant. Once all nominations have been received, we will select 8 of the most popular local charities to be featured in this year's grant scheme. We're then going to put the power to allocate the cash back into the hands of our readers for 4 weeks. Readers will be invited to collect tokens from our newspapers, which can be sent to collection points across our region or posted. Each token collected will be then used to allocate cash to the nominated charity. So if your favourite charity collects 50% of all tokens collected, it will receive 50% of the £20,000.
Trials motorcycling. There were plenty of thrills and one unfortunate spill at the Isle of Wight Motorcycle Club's annual flagship event. The Wight 2-day trial, which missed a year for only the second time since the first one in 1967 due to a foot and mouth outbreak, and last year COVID. Spread across 2 venues, the first day's proceedings kicked off at night in Sandpit, with the second day's finale on Bembridge Down. Organisers were unsure what the impact on entries would be this year amid the continuing global pandemic, but they need not have worried, with the 150 rider limit sold out in the space of 6 days. Both venues comprise 15 sections, with riders challenged to complete 3 laps at each venue. The trial was won by 2 Island expert class riders, Chris Day and George Gosden, who both completed the trial without dropping a single mark. Youth rider Islander Alfie Hayden proved to be the only other local rider to notch up a victory, taking the Youth B class with a convincing performance over fellow Island rider Alfie Gaskin, who finished second.
Andy will get his bench after all. A bench on National Trust land near Bembridge, in memory of a former volunteer, has been given a green light after all. It will be installed on Bembridge Down, close to where Andrew Gillam's ashes were scattered, and yards from the fort where he led guided tours. A petition was launched last week after 18 months, which his family's original request for the bench was turned down and was later rejected at appeal. Last Friday, the National Trust told County Press was in talks to find an alternative option. The family's chosen site was considered to be too close to an existing bench, but they argued it was little more than an old plank of wood on 2 struts. Now the Trust said it will allow a new bench because Andy, who was also known as Gil, gave his time to charity while living with cancer. In a statement, the National Trust said, "We have agreed to the request on the grounds that Andy gave so much quality volunteering to the National Trust. It will be similar to those we have in open countryside on the island." Andy was formerly named Best Tour Guide at Bembridge Fort, and his family says he was passionate about the fort. He used to play there as a child and flew his model aeroplanes on Culver Down. He was also published author writing a local history book. A GoFundMe page has been launched for those who want to donate to the seat.
Help keep lookout for Isle of Wight livestock. A first-hand experience on his own land has led to an Isle of Wight farmer starting up a new service to improve animal welfare. Livestock Lookout, developed by Tim Rogers of 250-acre Palmer's Farm at Wootton, enables the public to report livestock welfare issues through a text service which privately alerts farmers to issues they need to attend and resolve. Already supported by the Isle of Wight NFU branch following a successful trial, Tim is now looking to roll the service out across the UK. Tim said the idea began to take shape earlier this year when a cow escaped from land we had leased to a farmer. The first we knew of it was via a post my wife Danielle came across on Facebook. The cow had knocked someone over and had damaged a car. We put up a sign giving our contact number in case there are any future problems, but all that did was generate unwanted phone calls from people wanting to use our land. He believes the project connects the farming community with lovers of the great outdoors to ensure the countryside is a safer place. The service provides early alerts to all manner of issues requiring quick response, including dog attacks on livestock, which rural insurer NFU Mutual estimates cost farmers in the region of £1.3 million. That was in 2020. Livestock Lookout can also help tackle other problems, including escaped cattle, livestock theft, damage caused by straying animals and issues with gates and fencing. Passers-by on byways and footpaths can help provide a useful lookout. Tim believes his new service is becoming available at just the right time. Increased use of the countryside presents both a challenge and an opportunity, said Tim. It is a challenge because some people will not be familiar with the countryside code, but it's also an opportunity as they also present a useful and plentiful source of eyes and ears for the farmer. The Livestock Lookout enables the passing public to alert farmers using a phone text system which is published on dedicated signage with a unique location number. Reports to the number are relayed via Central Exchange directly to the subscribing farmer. In a genuine emergency, a call can be generated to the farmer for even faster results. Tim said it was clear we needed a more effective early warning system that also kept our own personal details anonymous. A parallel service equestrian lookout is also being rolled out.
Busy night for Ireland Coast Guard teams. Saturday night proves a busy one for both Ventnor and Bembridge Coast Guard rescue teams. Firstly at 6:10 p.m. they assisted when a vessel ran aground in Bembridge. A motorboat was hard aground at Bembridge Ledge with 3 people on board who needed to be extracted. They requested the help of Bembridge RNLI lifeboat. An anchor was laid and the casualties extracted. Late in the evening at 10:36 p.m, the teams were paged to a female casualty who had been in the water at Sandown. The incident was resolved quickly and the woman was handed into care of the Isle of Wight ambulance service. However, while completing the job, the Ventnor team was alerted to a collapsed male in Sandown, just up from the beach. It was just minutes before midnight and the team responded quickly with a casualty assessment and further care given while awaiting an ambulance. It's goodbye from Paul.
And goodbye from Pauline. There is no scaffolding news this week. The In Touch programme is as follows. Ofcom on audio description, audio-only video games. Audio description has been around for over 30 years. It is filling in the silences on TV, films and the theatre so that blind and partially sighted people can follow the action easier. The current legal requirements for audio description for all the major broadcasters is set at 10%, but there are currently no legal requirements for on-demand streaming such as Netflix and Amazon Prime, etc. We speak with one of the principals in Ofcom's content policy team, Cathy Taylor, about Ofcom's plans for on-demand streaming and asked whether the requirements should be set higher than 10%. There has been a boom in people playing video games over the lockdown period, and there are plenty of visually impaired people who have been joining in on the fun. We hear about an audio-only video game that is entirely accessible to blind and partially sighted players. It is rather rare for an audio-only game to reach the major consoles, but this one is available on the Xbox. It's called The Veil, The Shadow of the Crown. We hear a review from someone who has played it, and we speak to the game's developer, Dave Evans.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Have you ever wanted to become a blind medieval princess? Well, maybe not, but if you have, you can now with an audio-only video game that's entirely accessible for blind and partially sighted players. We'll be talking to its developer and someone who's played it a little later on.
There's something on the road.
What is it?
An animal. A bear, I think.
A bear?
Shield ready, Alex.
But first, audio description. We visited the topic on the programme not very long ago and we asked for your views. But if you're not quite sure of what it is, it's filling in the silences on TV, films and the theatre so that blind people can follow the action more easily. This is what it sounds like.
A hand sealing a letter shut with red wax. Now a man who's wearing a black sleeveless coat over a green high-collared jacket, galloping on horseback across grassland, clutching the letter in his hand.
Well, that was taken from BBC One's series Ghosts and should have given you an idea, with a bit of help from the horse, about what was actually going on. The communications regulator Ofcom has assigned a 10% minimum requirement for the major broadcasters like BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Sky, but there are currently no regulations on streaming platforms such as Netflix, Amazon Prime, etc., despite Ofcom themselves reporting that there's been a notable shift towards on-demand streaming platforms. Well, Kathy Taylor is one of the principals in Ofcom's content policy team and she joins me now. Welcome, Kathy. Before we talk about these regulations, how they're applied and whether they go far enough, I'd just like you to listen to some of the things In Touch listeners have been telling us when we asked for their views and questions about audio description.
Can you ask Ofcom if they can increase audio description from 10% to 80%, both on satellite television and on demand streaming services like Netflix and Amazon Prime, as I feel that we're being denied enjoyment of the same things as our sighted peers. I feel we're being treated as second-class citizens when it comes to enjoying the programmes our sighted friends are taking for granted these days.
What assurances can they give to ensure that iPlayer audio description will be available?
As someone with severe sight loss, I'm required to pay 50% of the full television licence fee. For this, I would expect at least 50% of television programmes to be audio described.
My problem is with Sky TV and the fact that there's no text speech on the programme listing screen. Every evening, my wife has to scroll through the sports channels to tell me what's available to record. This is my man cave, not on the family TV, I might add.
Well, just some of the views that we got from people. We'll come back to them specifically, Kathy, but first, just so we know where we stand from the start, what are the powers of Ofcom when it comes to audio description? What can you do and what can't you do?
Right. Well, I think first I should say that the 10% figure is set in the law, in legislation. It was set by government back in 2003, and it would be for government to change that figure. What Ofcom can do is we provide a code of practice for broadcasters on how they meet that requirement. And that includes something which is also set in legislation, ensuring that they don't have to spend a disproportionate amount of their turnover on audio description. So that figure is always a sort of balancing act between the benefits to visually impaired people and the costs to broadcasters.
And is that a mathematical decision? What's proportionate and what's disproportionate?
We do mathematically work out how much we think it's going to cost people to make audio description. And because it's quite a long process compared to some of the other access services, so compared to, say, subtitling, takes longer, it's more costly.
Now, streaming platforms, we understand that Ofcom has made recommendations to the government to aim to apply the same minimum 10% requirement for streaming services. So it is true to say there isn't a requirement at the moment. Now, what you'll have gathered from those comments you've just heard is that many listeners think 10% for audio description is a very low percentage for anyone. So how is it justified to have such a low figure?
No, I totally get that. It doesn't sound like a huge figure. The problem for us is, as I mentioned, there's this trade-off with how much it costs. And broadcasters do not have to provide any access services if the combined costs exceed a certain proportion of their turnover. So that means that by making that 10% higher, you're risking getting into a situation where people get out of it altogether. And what Ofcom has done in the past few years is focused on tightening up the rules on electronic programme guides, the text speech on listings. We've now made it a requirement that providers of electronic programme guides make those guides accessible to visually impaired people. We put out a report earlier this year which showed how the electronic programme guide providers are doing, and there are definite improvements. So I'm hoping that your listener will see improvements in that pretty soon.
Well, in fact, Sky have contacted us about the listener who was having trouble finding out which sports programmes were on each evening. They say they do provide text-to-speech on their latest set-top box, Sky Q, and they'd be very happy to contact the customer to try to resolve the problem. Just on the 10% of streaming services, what's the progress on that at the moment?
On streaming services, we've made our recommendations to government. We've made two lots of recommendations to government now. As you say, we've recommended the 10% so that we feel that's a reasonable requirement, particularly for broadcasters who are providing catch-up services and can make that 10% they have to do on broadcast. They can then make that available on their catch-up services. Obviously, that needs to be put in legislation again, and then we will draw up a code, as we do for broadcast, to tell on-demand providers how to do that in practice.
Now, a lot of companies are going above the 10% requirements for AD. BBC One, 22.5%, ITV One, 24.3%, Sky, 28%, Channel 4, 44%. So well at the top there, which that's good. But surely having such a low requirement to start with means that some companies won't put the effort in to go above it, and even those who do are being sent a message, aren't they, that they're fulfilling their obligations by supplying a relatively low rate of audio description.
I think I should first say that we really see this as a minimum requirement, and we want to continue to get broadcasters to see it as a minimum requirement, not, they have achieved it and they can stop there. And in practice, actually, we're not seeing people treat it as a maximum. As you said, many people are overshooting that 10%. The BBC, ITV, Channel 4 and Sky have all made voluntary commitment to audio describe at least 20% of their content. And in practice, we're seeing rates up to 78% on E4 last year, 67% on Sky Cinema Hits. So some of the channels that they provide are getting really high proportions of AD relative to that 10%. It is impossible for some people because of the type of content they put out. It's not terribly useful on the news, on chat shows, on very talk-heavy programmes.
But you've said yourself that 10% does seem very low. What do you think, and what do Ofcom think, is a reasonable figure to aim at, particularly for the large providers?
I think we're seeing good levels of audio description from some of the main broadcasters. We do an annual monitoring of the levels of audio description, partly so that people can go and find out where it's provided and how much. So I think on broadcast, we're not doing too badly at the moment. I really think the focus at the moment should be on demand, because as you said, that's where audiences are moving, and it's simply not fair that visually impaired people are being left behind in that shift.
So are you concerned that, you made that recommendation initially, I think in 2017, about 10%, yeah. Nothing's actually happened yet. Are you concerned that it's not actually become law? Are you allowed to be concerned, Ofcom?
I think, we are allowed to be concerned about audiences not getting to watch the content they should be getting to watch. It can't be done overnight, and it needs to be done in a proportionate way, and getting any access services, that's subtitles, audio description and signing, getting that onto on-demand content is much more complicated than you might think it is. And there are lots of technical difficulties because these services are made available across loads of platforms, so you can watch them on your mobile phone or your connected TV or your games console, and they all require different technology. So there's a lot of hurdles to leap to get this legislation in, but it really is in process now, is my understanding. We're also seeing on-demand providers anticipate these rules, I think. So again, our annual monitoring shows an increase in the amount of audio description that's available on demand.
One more quick thing. A lot of visually impaired TV lovers are telling us they're having to wait longer to watch their favourite titles being audio described because there's no audio description for them to watch it right away when it's uploaded. Could it be made a requirement for broadcasters to supply audio description as soon as they are uploaded onto catch up?
It's quite difficult to put this into hard regulations, but we absolutely will put this in any guidance that we propose for on-demand accessibility.
And again, finally, you dealt with one of the Sky moans that there was, but there is another one, no audio description on their on-demand now TV. Can you add anything to that?
All I can say is that this is exactly what regulations are designed to address, gaps in the provision. You know, we are seeing some improvements, but what visually impaired people don't get is a consistent, reliable experience so that you can turn on the telly, you can go to episode 3 of something you've watched on broadcast with audio description, and you can watch it on demand with audio description. And that's where we want to be, a more consistent, reliable experience.
And what about people who would just like to talk to Ofcom and say, this is what we want? What can you say to them?
Well, there's a really good opportunity coming up to talk to us about this. We will be consulting on any new guidelines and code that will accompany new regulations for on-demand accessibility. And I'd really encourage all your listeners to get in touch with us, to respond to that consultation if you have particular views on how audio description should work on demand.
Cathy Taylor from Ofcom, thank you very much indeed. And on that issue of when there might be legislation regarding on-demand services and how much audio description they should provide, the Department for Culture, Media and Sport told us it's important that television content should be accessible for all UK audiences as part of a digitally inclusive society. And we want to see an improvement in access services for video on demand. We're currently carefully considering Ofcom's accessibility recommendations and will set out next steps in due course. And we stay with access for our next item. Video games are becoming increasingly popular. Last year, the UK market rose by the fastest rate in 25 years. And according to the Entertainment Retailers Association, it was worth more than the entire video market and twice as much as the music market in 2020. And there are plenty of visually impaired people who want to join the games boom. Accessibility in video games has been improving dramatically in recent years, and more gaming studios are creating audio-only games, which essentially means there are no visuals to the game, just sound effects and a compelling story, hopefully. It's rare for these types of games to make it onto the big consoles, such as the Xbox or PlayStation, but one audio-only game that has hit the mainstream is called The Veil, The Shadow of the Crown. It's made by Falling Squirrel Studio.
A princess and future protector of the realm need first be able to protect herself. You know, I've never cared that you're blind. And our enemies will not care about that either when they set out to kill you. Here, take this sword.
Push the right stick in the direction you wish to swing.
Throughout the game, you play as a medieval princess called Alex, who just happens to be blind. The game is played in first person, and so as you'd expect from being in Alex's shoes, you navigate the game by listening out for sound cues, such as flowing rivers, yelling merchants, or enemies charging at you. Well, Toby Ott is a self-proclaimed avid gamer, and he's just finished this game and he joins us. Toby, first of all, what is your overall review?
Overall, I thought the game was absolutely brilliant. I played it over about 2 or 3 days and I thought it had a really compelling story with superb voice acting, great ambiences in the different areas, including the towns and the different areas that you actually go to in the game. The combat was brilliant in the sense that it starts off quite basic, and then as you progress through the game, it does get slightly more complicated.
Tell me, before you go on, have you always wanted to be a medieval princess?
Well, I don't know about that, but I've always been a big game fan. I've played a lot of games over the years, and it's so nice that companies like Falling Squirrel, for example, are coming out with games for like the consoles that are increasingly more accessible. There are some parts in the game where you have to actually sneak and use your bow and arrow, and that was where it was really cool because you could do all that stuff using just sound navigation. And another thing that I liked about the game was how, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but there are some really clever twists as well, which I was like, wow, I didn't expect that. Overall, though, The Vow is a really good game, and I would give it about an 8 out of 10, I would say.
Listening to that and hopefully not blushing too much with the praise is the game's developer, Dave Evans. Dave is the creative director of the game studio Falling Squirrel, and he joins me from Ontario in Canada. Dave, first of all, why did you actually want to create a fully accessible game, a game accessible for visually impaired people?
To be perfectly frank, the initial reason we started on this game was I wanted to make an audio game. It wasn't more than 3 months into the development of this, working in this sort of genre, that I thought, oh, of course, this is an accessible medium. And I should be talking to somebody who might be interested in that. And that's when I went to the CNIB, which is the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, and started, exploring, how interesting is this to the blind community.
Now, the protagonist of the game is blind, the princess is blind. I imagine that you got quite a lot of advice about what attributes to give them and what attributes not to give them, and some of the pitfalls.
Oh yeah, the trope, the blind swordsman trope, or the blind protagonist trope, in particular for a sighted developer doing an audio game. I was aware of that day one, and the main advice I got on that was make sure the character is not defined by their disability, that there's many other things that this character is about beyond their blindness. And I'm hoping I did this, but the whole idea of this entire journey is you should forget about Alex's blindness within the first hour or so of gameplay, and then she's everything else but that.
Now, it's quite rare for an audio-only game to reach the mainstream consoles, but yours is available to play on the Xbox. What does this mean for the future of accessible games, do you think?
I thought about this because even though there was obvious accessibility benefits from working the genre, but very quickly I knew if this was to be something that was marketable, it really did involve moving into the mainstream. And in a strange way, because I worked very closely with the blind community making this game, at the end of the day, I feel like it was less about me making a game for this community than me making a game with this community for everyone.
Dave Evans, Toby Ott, thank you both very much indeed. And we'd welcome your suggestions, perhaps, for Dave's next game. And that's about all for today. If you'd like to share your thoughts and opinions about anything at all that we've covered in tonight's programme, you can send us an email on intouch@bbc.co.uk. You can leave a voice message on 0161 836 1338, or you can visit our website where you can download tonight's and previous editions of the programme. That's it from me, Peter Wight, producer Beth Hemmings, and studio managers Sharon Hughes and Jonathan Esp. Goodbye.